Hello guys, how are you doing? I trust you're doing good. Today we are going to learn how to fix no display motherboard. That is when you're sure you don't have a problem with your screen or you don't have a problem with your display cable. You will be sure about that after you test it, right? Yes. I remember in my last video where I explained how to diagnose the laptops with no display. I told you the first thing you do is to verify whether you have a display from the motherboard, and you're missing the display from the screen. Uh, and after that, you need to verify your VGA cable is not the reason. So once you verified you don't have a problem with the screen or the VGA cable is what we call a display cable. So your next step is to go deeper into your motherboard, right? So this is the motherboard 840G3. This motherboard assume a customer reports no display issue. So the first thing you do, you need to confirm with your RAM. This is what you call RAM stick. This is the first step after you verified you don't have a problem with the screen and the VGA cable. So your next step is to ensure you verify the RAM also, because this is the memory for the CPU. And the CPU is the main chipset inside this heatsink. This is what called the heatsink. So inside here you have the CPU. That's a central processing unit of a motherboard. So we need to verify, or we need to confirm that the RAM is okay. And I said the RAM is the memory for the CPU. So how do you verify that? Yes, the first thing you do, you remove this, and this is how you remove the RAM from your laptop. Yes, you unclip this one, and you can see the RAM stick pops up. You see, that's how it is seated or placed. So once you unclip this way, it pops up. Then you remove it this way carefully, because one small mistake removing these RAMs, the RAM can be dead, or it can damage your RAM slot, or it can even short your CPU, because the RAM and the CPU are directly connected. That's why whenever you're doing this, you need to ensure all the power sources are disconnected, all the from the power jack or the AC power adapter, which is plugged here, and the battery. You need also to confirm your battery is not plugged in, right? Yes. So once you removed your RAM, you can choose your working RAM. As a technician, you should have your working RAM. You should use a different RAM. That is, then you place your RAM inside this RAM slot. You clipped it back, then you try to power on the laptop again with a different RAM. That is when you will verify you don't have a problem with the RAM. If the laptop's displays, it means your RAM is faulty. If it didn't, you can assume maybe the RAM is okay, but the RAM slot is the socket where you can place your RAM. So this was called the RAM slot. So maybe you have an issue with your RAM slot, so you can change. If there's two slots, you can change that slot, you place it in the other, you can change the RAM into the other slot, right? Then you power on again. Yes, if it works, maybe you have an issue with that slot again, right? Yes, if it didn't, you can assume, you can eliminate that possibility of the RAM slot and the RAM uh, to be faulty is minimal. So your next step, once you've verified that you don't have an issue with the RAM or the RAM slot, then you go deeper, that is into advanced diagnosis. Then your next step is to check whether your BIOS are okay. You need to reset your BIOS. That is by removing this battery. This is what we call the CMOS battery. Sometimes we call it BIOS battery. So this battery, a good one, should have a readings of three voltages. You see. So let's check this one. How many voltages this one have? So let me have a meter, then you can check the voltage for this one. So this is my meter, so this is my digital multimeter. So I need to open it. So I need to power it on into this voltage. This calibration of 20. Yes, so I need to check the voltage for this CMOS battery. It should be 3. A good battery should read 3 voltages. So I have my probes here. Yes, yes, you can see. I believe I saw about 3 voltages there, 3.09. So meaning my CMOS is good. So if your CMOS is good, you put it back. That is resetting the BIOS. Once you put it back, try to power on again. You power on your laptop again. If the issue was about the frozen BIOS, it will reset, and then your display will come back. If that is not the case, you check for the BIOS. BIOS are these chipsets, these chips. You can see. So here you have a main BIOS chip, and this one has a capacity of 128 KB. This one is the ROM BIOS, which has a capacity of 64 KB. But this is the main BIOS, which normally corrupts. So this is where you can reprogram this BIOS, right? Yes, you can reprogram this BIOS and might solve the issue of display. If that, just make sure you reprogram it with the correct files. You know, there are so many files online, so just ensure you're programming it with the accurate file which matches the bat number of this motherboard, right? Yes. If that's not the case still, if your display is not yet back, it may be now you might have to look into the processor. Maybe you have an issue with your processor. So let me just show you. So you need to open the heatsink. Maybe your problem is from the processor, and we say the processor is the brain of your motherboard. And if you have an issue with it, so it means your motherboard is brain dead. And from there, I don't think there's anything you can do more. That's when we can declare that motherboard as a dead motherboard, and it is beyond repair. Why do we say it's beyond repair? Is this CPU not replaceable? No, it is replaceable. However, once you replace it, it's not guaranteed that it will 100% works the way it should work, right? Yes, and again, you find it's time consuming, and you might charge the amount which is equivalent to buying another motherboard. That's why, as a businessman, you just need to opt to instead of doing the reballing of this CPU, you just have to tell the customer to buy another motherboard, right? Yes. So here, here we have the CPU. This is the CPU. You can see it has two parts, or it has two sections. Here I have a section called the south bridge or north bridge. So this is the BCH. So this particular section is the BCH. You can see. So there's a border between the two. So this is what's called the BCH, and this is what's called the processor itself. So this processor, and this is a BCH. The BCH ensures the communication between the processor itself and the RAM. That's a high-speed component. And RAM is one of the high-speed component, and the SSD. So because we are handling the issue of display, so if the BCH is dead, so meaning the communication between the processor and the RAM will fail. Hence what? Hence there will be no display, because for a display to be there, you need to have the two parts communicating, the RAM and the processor. And again, if the processor is dead, it means even if this BCH is working, this one will not be responding to the RAM. So meaning even the communication between the two still will fail, right? Yes. So and once you have a problem inside this chipset, this is the main chipset, that is either CPU or the process, either the processor itself or the PCH, still you will experience a problem with your display. So even, by the way, even before you focus on the processor, you have what's called the processor circuit. So this is a processor circuit. So this circuit supplies power to the processor, and if you have a short, however, that short which appears in the circuits for the processor normally kills the processor. So even if you have a short along the circuit, obviously the processor still will be dead. Maybe we can go back a little bit. When you were discussing about the RAM slot being faulty, sometimes you might find the processor circuit, that is this circuit here. So this circuit is what supplies power into the RAM. So in case you have a short in this circuit, so meaning the RAM might get faulty, or the RAM might fail to get power for the for it to operate, for it to communicate with the CPU, and it will hinder the display. Thus you will miss having the display into your screen. So those are some of the few factors which can contribute to your laptop not having a display. So whenever you're diagnosing, those are the things you need to do. You first change the RAM, use a different RAM, exchange the RAM sticks, different slots. Then from there, you check for the circuit, that is RAM supply circuit, if there's a short or not. Then from there, not only a short, even the spillage or the liquid damage in these circuits still cause the problem of power going into the RAM. Then from there, you need to check for the BIOSes, both BIOS, especially the main BIOS, you need to check for them. Then from there, you check for the CPU and the PCH, whether they have an issue. And I believe you will find the problem. You will not miss, because more than 80% of the problems which appears in our laptops nowadays is the problems which you can see physically. That's why the first step you do when you are diagnosing any problem in your laptop is to do what's called physical inspection. You need to inspect your motherboard carefully. Once you're keen enough, you will find the problems there, right? Yes. So thank you guys for being patient with me, and please subscribe to this channel and share with your friends. See you in the next video. Bye bye.